Over the last couple of days, we've examined some general statements from Solomon from the book of Proverbs concerning government. Today, we're going to look at some of our responsibilities toward those in government. Now, most people will not find themselves in government, but will find themselves subject to the governing authorities. Therefore, it's important that we understand what our responsibility and our attitude should be toward those in power. Solomon, in speaking to his son, says, "My son, fear the Lord and the king. Do not associate with those who are given over to change." Proverbs 24 and verse 21. In considering the danger of bad friends, we noticed in a previous lesson that trouble comes when one associates with those who are given to change. Sometimes change is necessary, such as when one is changing from a state of wickedness to a state of righteousness. But this verse is warning about those with a rebellious attitude who want to change simply for the sake of change. Now, some civil authorities will roughly follow God's instruction for them, and others will completely reject God's will. Naturally, the righteous man will want stability for the good rulers and will want change when it comes to evil rulers. However, some are not content no matter who is in charge. They want change when the wicked are in power and also when the righteous are in power. But we are not to keep company with those who have such a rebellious attitude. Solomon says that he who loves purity of heart and whose speech is gracious, the king will be his friend. Proverbs 22 and verse 11. Of course, this verse assumes that the king is righteous himself, so that he values such qualities. But regardless of the character of the king, we must act with honor and integrity, and this is the only right way to gain favor with those in authority. Those who are righteous will take note of it and will respond with kindness. Solomon says that the terror of a king is like the growling of a lion, and he who provokes him to anger will forfeit his own life. Proverbs 20 and verse 2. The king has the power to do harm to those with whom he desires to punish, and this may be done properly, such as we see with punishing evildoers in Proverbs 20 and verse 26, or it may be done improperly, such as oppressing the righteous along with the wicked. But regardless of the reason for the wrath that comes from those who are in power, we should do as Paul told the brethren in Thessalonica. Make it your ambition to live a quiet life. 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 11. We should not be looking for trouble, but we should be striving to conduct our lives in such a way that those in power, whether righteous or wicked, will simply leave us alone. Solomon then goes on to say that when you sit down to dine with a ruler, consider carefully what is before you, and put a knife to your throat if you are a man of great appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for it is deceptive food. Proverbs 23 verses 1 through 3. This passage warns us that not everything that is offered to us by those in positions of power is helpful or good for us. Therefore, if the government offers us anything, before agreeing to accept it, we need to carefully consider the potential ramifications of our acceptance of it. There may be times in which it would be better to refuse what is offered than to accept what is offered, along with whatever strings may be attached to it. Solomon says, "Do not claim honor in the presence of the king, and do not stand in the place of great men. For it is better that it be said of you, 'Come up here,' than for you to be placed lower in the presence of the prince, whom your eyes have seen." Proverbs 25 verses 6 and 7. We are to exercise humility in the presence of those in power, so that if they take notice of us, it is to exalt us and not to humble us. And Jesus discussed this same principle in Luke 14 verses 7 through 11. But Solomon goes on to say that many seek the ruler's favor, but justice for man comes from the Lord. Proverbs 29 and verse 26. This is possibly the most important verse to remember in the book of Proverbs about our attitude towards civil authorities. Many people seek the favor of rulers because they see these leaders as holding the power of life or death over them. Yet we must remember that justice from man comes from the Lord, and any justice from civil authorities only comes as they comply with the will of God. Any injustice from civil authorities will one day be made right by God, as He is over all, even those who rule over us in this life. But rather than looking to civil authority as our deliverer and the standard of righteousness, we need to look to God for these things. We must never forget the surpassing greatness of God and the inferiority and the comparative weakness of human rulers. Friends, we want to thank you for joining us for our program today. We pray that you have a blessed day and a wonderful weekend ahead.